Welcome to the Polar Homestead. We learn finance, permaculture and prepping, a modern view of the world. Don't forget, freedom is in your hands. Stay safe and vigilant, friends. And now your host, Ralph KK. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's me, your host Ralph KK, from the North Pole in the summer. Today we have a special guest, Christine from Norway. How are you, Christine, today?
I'm fine. I'm enjoying these last days of summer.
Tell us about your summer. What do you do during the summer?
I don't know. For me, this summer was pretty boring. I didn't travel anywhere, so I just stayed home. At least I have my own garden just to enjoy these last sunny days. So I was just painting, doing some work in the garden. So it was acceptable, I guess. Acceptable.
Why you didn't travel anywhere? What was stopping you from traveling?
I could say there are different reasons. First, because of the situation in general, I don't think that maybe it is not completely safe right now, and also the mood of the people with all of this situation, their mind, I don't know, it's just polluted, and everybody's kind of angry, kind of sad. So it's just not that much fun to travel right now.
Yeah, in general, if you are in Europe, it is not safe to travel. And a lot of people, they don't understand how delicate the situation is. That everything is so tense between the three biggest world powers. Everything is so tense that any minute, a big conflict could just break out. And you are on the beach somewhere, Spain, Greece, and whatever, and then you see in the distance mushroom clouds going on everywhere. Then what are you gonna do? And a lot of people they just don't think about it. They just think about the now, the moment, just to kind of enjoy themselves, go to the beach to eat fish, to sunbathe, whatever. But they don't understand how complicated the situation is right now.
You can think of this situation, I suppose, from two point of view, from two sides. First, of course, it is not safe, and in the long term, it is better to stay home and think about your own security. But from other side, we don't know what just the next day will bring to us. So maybe this is our last day. So it is. I suppose we cannot say for people in general. It is the choice of every single person. Depends what your life is for you, whether you live just one day and enjoy it, and tomorrow you just accept what is coming, or stay secure. But maybe we are not able to travel safely, not this year, not next year. So you cannot say that this is completely right or wrong. So
this could be the last summer of civilization before the apocalypse.
Exactly.
What is your favorite post-apocalyptic film that you've watched?
I need to think about it. I can answer this question maybe later, in the end of this podcast.
You have never watched this film called The Road? With this guy from Lord of the Rings, Virgo something. He was the king. Do you know this guy? From Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is one film called The Road with this guy as the main character, yeah? So the film is about, the Earth, there was solar flares, and the solar flares, they destroyed all the electronics on Earth. And there was fires and stuff, so complete collapse of civilization. And there was like some people who was left alive, and they're like struggling and trying to survive on Earth after civilization. And life, it is like very tough. There is nothing left of civilization, so like everybody just like roaming around, and there is no food. And you know what happened? They became cannibals. They are eating each other.
You are talking about films, and I just remembered this new game about the cats. Like when just people, they were just gone from the earth already, and there are only robots and these cats on the surface. So it's also like interesting that our knowledge, our culture was almost completely lost after some kind of apocalyptic event.
So like the idea of apocalypses is like present in our mind constantly, as if we are afraid of it, or as if we are conscious that it is coming for us.
Yeah. And just recently we replayed also this game, the Death Stranding, and at the end it was that extinction. It is opportunity for humanity to find like some inner resources and rebuild our lifestyle. So maybe we have in some kind of scenario the same. So like we should see it an opportunity to improve us as humans and be more kind to earth and to each other.
And did you follow my advice? Did you start growing your potatoes?
I gave this to experts in our family who can do it better than me.
Today, it is August 17th of the year 2022. While civilization still exists, and I have my crop of potatoes ready. I grow my potatoes in containers, so each container is like 50 liters of dirt, and I have something like 7 to 10, let's say 10 containers of potatoes, and my crop, it is ready. And do you know when potatoes are ready to be harvested? I mean, the plant of potatoes, when is it ready to be harvested, do you know?
Around the beginning of September, no? The last days of August, beginning of September.
You can literally plant potatoes the whole year. So and the growing period is something like 3 to 4 months. And the time when the potatoes are ready to harvest, it is usually when the plant becomes yellow. When you see your potato plant turn yellow, it is the time. So the potato plant, it is green. So when it turns yellow, it is wilting. So when the potato plant turns yellow, you just cut it. Then you wait something like 5 to 10 days, and you go take out your potatoes and you get your crop. And I was checking my crop, and I have like huge, big, tasty potatoes to be ready to be harvested.
But if I'm not mistaken, with this method, when you put it in some kind of containers, you put dirt on top each time when the green plant come out, no?
Yeah, but the potato plant itself, it has like a life cycle, so it cannot grow more than 4 months. Because then it wilts, regardless of if it is hot or cold or wet, whatever. The potato plant will just wilt because it reached the maximum possibilities in this year's cycle. So it becomes yellow, it wilts, and then the potatoes, they will go into dormancy, or you can harvest them.
So you were just talking that the plant itself becomes yellow. So how can you understand if it's ready or not? Just counts in time?
No, the plant becomes yellow and it just dies. There is no more plant. There is only the tubers in the dirt.
Yeah, but you put dirt each time on top, so you don't see the...
This is during the growing period. So you put your potatoes in the dirt. Then like 1 week, 2 weeks later, the green plant starts to come out, yeah? So as it is growing up, you just drop dirt on top, and on top of it, dirt. And like this, you do it for 3-4 months. And then you just grab your potatoes and eat your potatoes.
Okay, and which kind of potatoes do you grow? Sweet potatoes or usual potatoes?
Sweet potatoes, this is a whole nother story. It's a whole other plant. For example, the usual potato, the plant itself, it is poisonous. So if you touch the potato plant, you can get like a rash on your skin, or depending how much you touch it, the liquid inside the plant, this can be like harmful to you. Like the potato plant itself is very poisonous, and the tubers, if the tubers they're green, they're also very poisonous. Like there have been like many cases where people store potatoes in the basement, and during winter, and sometimes people die because they go down to the basement to see the potatoes. They inhale the gases, the gas from the potatoes, and they just die.
Really, I have never thought about it. I know only about eating green potatoes.
So if you eat the green potato, you will get poisoned. And if you store like a big amount of potatoes in the basement and they became green, they will produce a gas, and this gas will kill you. There has been like many cases about this.
Oh my goodness, you're just crazy about the possibility of dying. Like, I think that to die, like, the percentage, like, the possibility to die from the gas of potato, it's 0.000 something, you know?
It is actually very common. It's like a very common thing to have a potato poisoning. It's very common. So usually especially in children, because their weight is not so much, so children are more likely to get poisoned by potatoes.
Okay, I will not check it. Like, I just believe you about this. So what about your potatoes? You grow both and sweet potato? What's the name of the scientific name?
But the sweet potatoes, the sweet potatoes, they are a different plant. They are called sweet potatoes, but they are not potatoes themselves. They use a tuber called sweet potatoes. So the plant of the sweet potato, this is not poisonous. You can eat it. Even you can eat the young green growth, the young leaves of the sweet potato. You can eat it. You can cook it. It tastes something like spinach. Did you know this?
I just don't like sweet potatoes in general. This is some kind of strange half fruit, half vegetable for me. So I just this flavor is not for me, not my favorite. So.
But the sweet potatoes, they are, I would say, like very user-friendly in case of in a survival situation, because as they are not poisonous, you can grow it inside your home or in your balcony, and because it is not poisonous, you can just have this sweet potato plant there just growing, and it will give you tubers, and you can live from these tubers, and they are usually very, very productive. They can eat or use like a lot of fertilizer. So you put your tubers, you just drop dirt on it, and you keep feeding it like every 2 weeks. Give like a bunch of fertilizer, and in 3 months you're gonna have a huge sweet potatoes that you can eat.
Okay, in case I will be starving during apocalypse, I will come for you for your sweet potatoes.
In the upcoming apocalypse, which might be coming pretty soon.
I hope not. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
So, a little bird told me that you are now also a podcaster. Is this true? Did you become a podcaster?
And it's such a serious word. Yeah, like I have my podcast. Maybe this is not the first job I'm doing, but when I have free time, I decided to share with people some of my tricks, techniques, and in general talk about artists' lifestyle. So like I decided that maybe it would be interesting for some people.
Actually, I've heard your podcast, and this is more about psychology than anything else.
But like you just have to understand like that the artist's mind, it is not a common thing, yeah, and also to stay in some kind of this like artistic to keep this artistic thinking, to be able to create something new, you have to use different psychological tricks to be productive. So like because of this, some parts of this podcast, like it's really about psychology, which helps me to keep myself fit, like about to not to get too much depressed or.
So you mean that people who are preparing for the apocalypse, they should listen to your podcast, because this is about self-improvement and self-relaxation.
Yeah, I'm not pretending to be some kind of a famous psychologist or like expert about psychological things. Yeah, I'm just like busy with this, and I know which kind of stuff, which kind of techniques they work for me. And yeah, like for me, first of all, I'm using it in my creative life. Yeah, when I'm painting, but also you can use it in your everyday life just to improve yourself and to make your day more productive in any kind of activity you are busy with.
I've also heard that you even have a blog. Oh my goodness, you're writing a blog.
It's kind of the same as my podcast. Just I know some people they prefer to read and some people they prefer to listen. Because like in blog there is also some kind of function button that you can listen to what you write, yeah, on the page. But this is some kind of robotic voice, and you listen to this and you don't feel the same way in case you would be listening to a real person. So I just decided that it might be more interesting to listen in case I would tell people myself, not just read in the blog or listen in the robotic voice in this blog, like written blog. So I have my blog in Medium and blogger.com.
Okay, what is your username? Let's promote you. What is your username?
The Northern Muse.
Okay, you also have, what do you have? You have Instagram, you have YouTube, what else? You have a blogger, yeah?
Yeah, like in YouTube, I'm the Northern Muse, and my blog it is the Northern Muse Art Cafe.
Okay, so people should search for you as the Northern Muse all around Instagram, YouTube, and blogger if they want to learn about psychology, self-improvement from a feminine perspective, yeah?
Like I said, this is not like mostly like I'm also talking about art there. Like each episode we are talking about different art pieces. So like it is not completely about psychology. So like.
In my own opinion, what I've heard, everything is about psychology and self-improvement. Maybe I was not paying attention to the art part.
The art part, this is the second part. Like you have to listen till the end to get it.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so tell me, have you made preparations for the upcoming winter? Because it's going to be a very tough winter, very, very tough. Only the strong will survive in the upcoming winter.
I did it as much as I could in like reasonable volume. I would say, like not crazy, not like storing like a lot, but some preparations, yeah, for sure.
Like what? Do you buy pasta?
I bought pasta, I bought rice, I bought beans. Also like some extra bags of sugar. I'm not really eating sugar, but for cooking, like maybe. Also like right now we have berry season. I hope that I will make some jam maybe. So also for like autumn.
I already collected my berries. I got like 10 kilograms of black currant, and then I turn it into jam, and I have like another 20 kilograms of jam of black currant. And then I don't know what I'm going to do with all of this. When am I going to eat it? I don't know. I have no idea. It's just like too much jam, too much berries.
You could also like close it like to make the jars clean, and there are a lot of videos on YouTube about how to make you jam in the jars and store it like for 1 year. So.
You can also freeze it. Did you know this? You can freeze your jam and it's used as fresh.
It's not like really, I don't like frozen berries. When you
No. You grab the berries, you make it into jam, and then you freeze the jam already prepared. And supposedly there is no difference after you unfreeze it. There is no difference, according to what people say. Haven't tried this.
But for this, like you have to consider that like a lot of empty space in your fridge. Like you need a lot of empty space for this to store it. So. I suppose it's more convenient to keep it in the jar somewhere in a cold place in your house, on the ground. So.
It depends how much work do you want to do, how much free time to do this you have, because it does take like some effort to can your jam.
Also, like if you like freeze it, like you freeze like a big portion, you have to consider that you have to take out small portions to not to take out the whole thing, because how can you're gonna eat the whole bag of.
No, this is why you have like small glass containers, and you put your jam in small glass containers, and then you just put the containers in the freezer.
Can you imagine how much space does it take in your freezer to have such a like huge space there? I don't. I have like usual fridge.
You could make like a you could grab like one big compartment and then put in there like 2 levels of your jams.
And the rest, like for your everyday life, like chicken and stuff, we're gonna put it.
So you take one jar as you are using it every day.
I suppose you just don't know what you're talking about. You're delusional.
I know what I'm talking about for sure.
I don't want to argue with you about this, but the space.
It is just the point of view of the masculine mind versus the female mind. In the masculine mind, everything it is possible like this. The female mind, they cannot conceive such a construction inside the fridge.
So very soon you have to face the reality, your man mind. Very, very soon.
Okay, we'll see about that. So, do you remember which film is your favorite post-apocalyptic?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it is the Blade Runner. It is not completely like you said, but it was also like after some cataclysm, not even cataclysm, like ecological crisis, how you call it.
So in Blade Runner, so it's into the future, something like like right now, like the year 2022 or maybe 50 more years. So the Earth, there was ecological collapse all around, super ecological collapse, and the Third World War, it happened. So there was like nuclear weapons exploding all around in different places. So there was like a winner and a loser, and plus the ecological collapse. And then so humans, the people that survived, they concentrated in big cities like megapolises. And so with the remaining technology, they kept building what was left, and so there is like some kind of post-apocalyptic civilization that kept some technology, and they live in big cities and only in these small cities because everything outside is just destroyed. So do you think this is like an option for us?
It's quite possible. Maybe it's quite possible. Maybe not the same scenario, but yeah, like this sounds reasonable. Yeah, that after some kind of apocalyptic event, people they have to concentrate and just to survive together. And also, this film is not only about humans. This is about some kind of cyborgs. Yeah. So like this, what is the modern technologies they're moving towards to. So, like this is kind of reasonable.
I suppose today or yesterday there was in the news like a report by some organization. So they calculated that if there was like a Third World War, like they calculated how much people would possibly die. So they came to the number of 5 billion people would die in this war. We are like 7 billion people, from 7 to 8 billion people. So according to this, something like 70% of people would die, 5 billion people, and then the rest would be left to struggle in something like Blade Runner. Yeah.
For this, like this is obvious, that some kind of event like this, maybe not that much strong, it's supposed to happen just reasonably because the Earth is not able to take that amount of population right now living on the Earth. Yeah, so like maybe not 5-7 billion will be just extincted. I call it just disappearing.
But here it is like the like kind of interesting facts and idea that as humans, there is more population, they become bigger, yeah? So the Earth cannot sustain this. So there is much less resources for everybody. Much less resources. So because of this, so people start fighting because there are not enough resources. So countries, they start fighting, they create wars, and this is what could create like a world war, which would lead to a massive death of people. And all of this because there are no resources. So countries, they are fighting over resources like food, water, nature, trees, all of this stuff, energy. So countries are fighting over resources right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, like they just trying to pictures like the governments of the different countries. They try to picture all this war like some kind of protecting like personal views of people. Yeah, their like attitude there. They're like depends to which country, to which nation they just they think they are. Yeah. But in general, behind the scene, what is happening behind the scenes, this is, yeah, like you said, this is just the war for the resources. Because we are just not told how bad the situation is. Like, I don't think that each one of us, we are just checking at least once a year how much resources left for us, yeah, to live. So, like, but if you check the report, this is like, what we were saying, 30 years, like, okay, and then 50 years.
According to scientists, there will be like massive ecological collapse by the year 2032. So something like 10 years, massive ecological collapse. So in 10 years, the Earth will not be able to sustain everybody that is here today.
But what is funny, if you're just looking right now on the map, yeah, for the countries who is fighting, and this is like two kind of wars, yeah, worlds, like Russia, China, Iran, yeah, like India partially, they're like neutral, but like still, yeah, they're like maybe not that much developed countries, but with the great amount of the resources.
Yeah, this is funny. They're very rich in resources.
But the other part, it's like Europe, let's say.
So these are like post-industrialized nations which already used all their resources.
Yeah, like these are countries with the great, they're like very developed.
So post-industrialization.
Technologically developed, but with the resources they're like very poor, and also people they already like forgot, they're not used to like really hard lifestyle. So like
like the Canadian Premier, he always talks about this, that people have become too soft in the West, that they are not used to struggling. And they became too soft, and now they are just too soft to survive, like in real life or in nature.
Oh, so like we have like two kind of fronts which are fighting, and these two fronts, they just don't want to fight on their own territory, and they found just the piece of land which be suitable for them, just have their business and then decide all the problems, issues, and then just like go their own ways. Yeah. So like, but to us, it was just told to think like some kind of way just to grow hate to each other. But I think that for real, this like really, like you said, that this is just war for the resources, because just like you can be very developed, like to have all these super machines, like devices, but without resources, just basically without food, with all this technology, you will not survive. This technology would not feed you. Sorry, like 3D printer cannot make you eatable hamburger yet.
But there is bugs, and there is box powder to make hamburgers.
Yes, like sorry, like some, let's say German or Swedish guy, he's sitting eating in front of the TV like pieces of cockroaches, and some guy in Iran, he's sitting there and eating piece of some tasty stuff.
Yeah, but like some piece of meat, yeah.
Yeah, and laughing on the TV, like no, this is pathetic, right? So like, of course you can survive, but we are talking about like acceptable living. Like I don't think that anybody want to live the same lifestyle like people in Africa. Like for breakfast I have 2 cockroaches. For dinner I'm gonna have like another bug. Like
actually some cultures in the past they already ate bugs for survival purposes. Usually like in the jungle, like East Asia, Africa, South America, like a lot of tribes they already ate bugs to supplement their diet. Because usually in wilder conditions it's difficult to get meat, to get protein.
But we are talking about civilization, how it is right now. Like, yeah, like it used to be Germans, it used to be France, which like they used to live in hard condition. There were a bunch of diseases, like for example, before which couldn't be treated. Yeah, a lot of people they were dying. Also, like all the countries in some specific period of their history, they used to have like parts when they were struggling. But the point is that it was very long period of peace, and also they had opportunity to grow their economy and improve their lifestyles. And right now it's very difficult to come back to something what make them uncomfortable. Like for example, if you're sleeping on orthopedic bed for 10 years, would it be easier for you to go sleep like I don't know on some kind of bed in prison, for example? Like
yeah, no way. I don't go anywhere without my orthopedic bed and my orthopedic pillow.
So, and you're talking about the guy who was like eating in the restaurant some kind of delicious piece of salmon, or like so juicy and an amazing piece of Argentinian steak, for example. And
but come on, with all the science, all the technology, they can create a fake meat grown in the laboratory. So you can go eat your steak with a fake meat. It's like 3D printed with molecules, particles, cells grown in the laboratory, 3D printed, and you will eat it, and maybe you will not know the difference between something 3D printed or if it is natural or not. You will not know it.
Okay, like to answer to this question, like also like two kind of answers. Yeah. So like first, about the amount of population which we have right now in Europe and USA, yeah, like not let's say developed countries. Like, will you be able to print these steaks for all this amount of people, like with acceptable price? No, that's not so cheap, but acceptable price? I don't think so.
Yes, it's very cheap to 3D print it actually. And also the population in Europe and the USA, it is declining. It is not growing. So this is the question: why is the governments and the mainstream media in the West trying to promote this? Because the population is declining and it is very cheap to 3D print the meat or to feed them bugs also. So like, what is happening?
So now I was saying that this is two points, yeah. So like, the second point that I think that only like it will be very specific people who will be able to get it. Like I don't think.
What do you mean? The 3D printed meat?
Yeah.
There is in the USA they call it. I don't remember the name of this, but they already sell hamburgers of this of fake meat grown in the laboratory. They are already mass producing it, and it is beginning. Maybe it is not so advanced in the taste, in the flavor, but just give it like 5 years, they will be able to give you a steak which tastes the same as the steak from a real cow. You will not notice the difference. In just 3-5 years, you will not notice the difference.
I don't know, like maybe I'm just old-fashioned thinking, like, but would you eat like this plastic food, like not like food which is not alive?
But like I'm telling you, you will not notice the difference. It will taste exactly the same. You will not know if it is real or not. You will not know it.
But the point is that this is good for your body or not. Like it will probably just make your life very shortly. You think that I know that Earth is just like a living organism, you know? Like everything is connected. You cannot just cheat the system. I just don't think so.
Usually at the beginning when you create new technologies, usually there is something bad about it. So we don't know if this meat grown in the laboratory, it is okay at the beginning. We don't know. Probably not, but we don't know. Usually something new, usually at the beginning is not so good or so healthy.
Okay, what I say that, okay, we will leave Americans to taste this and then tell us. I'm not gonna try it myself.
Yeah, we will just go to live there in Iran, in the mountains there, have our goats. We will eat our goat's milk, our goat cheese. We will also grow our crop of wheat. We'll make our own bread. And then also like the native people, once a year, we slaughter like a goat and have some meat.
I don't know, not Iran. Like the language there is too crazy. I've tried to learn it and nope.
What do you mean? This is the Persian culture. This is previous Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about only about the language. This is great concept.
This is why the cradle of civilization. This is why complex language, complex cultures, complex civilization.
Yeah, they're great. Like the history, like very interesting. I don't have anything to say against this.
Okay, so we're running out of time. Do you have any final thoughts or comments for the audience?
So like we were talking about my psychological like podcast. So like maybe I would give you some tips in this podcast also for your
tips.
For your well-being during these very difficult times. Like first, I think like you know that technically we can keep only one thought like in our mind per time. Yeah, we cannot think about like single about multiple stuff at the same time. So like this takes us to the point that you have to be concentrated on something positive when you're like really struggling. Just try to replace bad thoughts with some kind of positive thoughts, like some kind of productive stuff which help you to go through a difficult period in your life. Like if you are struggling of hunger, try to concentrate on something else. If you are struggling of depression, also try to concentrate on traveling, for example, like different stuff.
So you mean if I want to have money, I should think about money to attract the money to me? Yes, this is what you're saying.
This was not what I was talking about. This is different. This called like visualization. How like some different esoteric people say. Like we are not talking about this thing. We're just talking about to keep your mind healthy. So like to not to fall into great depression in your mind. And for this, you have to learn this technique to replace thoughts using the knowledge that you can technically think only about one thing at a time. So this was the first point. And second, to not to get depressed, you have to keep yourself all the time busy, because only busy person it is a happy person. Usually bad thoughts, they're coming to us when our mind is free and have just space to do their like bad business, just to think about like to be polluted with some bad information, like be busy with something all the time.
So keep yourself busy, keep yourself healthy, keep yourself young, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I would say eat healthy food, but like
Yeah, guys, don't eat bugs. Don't go to the garden and find some crickets and eat it. Don't eat the bugs in the garden, okay? Guys, this is bad.
I was talking about these plastic hamburgers, but okay, but
also don't go to the toy store and buy some plastic hamburgers and try to eat it, okay? This is bad. Don't eat the plastic hamburgers.
Even if it smells nice, don't eat it.
Yeah, don't eat it. Even if it smells like some nice perfume, whatever, don't eat the plastic hamburgers, okay, guys?
Yeah, so funny. Okay, like I suppose we have to finish because it's turned into some kind of nonsense already.
Yeah. Also, check my Instagram, my YouTube. I have gardening stuff. I have pictures of my potatoes, of my potato plants, how I'm harvesting them. And on YouTube, I have like gardening videos. The Polar Homestead. Just search for it, and everything will be peachy.
Easy peachy.
Easy peachy, yo, guys. Okay, say bye to the audience.
Goodbye, audience. Good luck to you. Stay safe, healthy, and no, I'm not gonna say it. Stay good.
What else? Come on, your catchphrase.
Yeah.
You have to say it. Come on, guy.
I cannot.
Come say your catchphrase. The audience is waiting for you.
No, stop it. Stop it, I don't want.
Okay. Okay, vaya con Dios, people. Bye.
Welcome to the Polar Homestead. We learn finance, permaculture, and prepping. A modern view of the world. Don't forget, freedom is in your hands. Stay safe and vigilant, friends. And now your host, Ralph KK. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
inside. Nothing left to hide, not even from myself. I wanna call you mine and feel our worlds collide, and we'll be holding on to the morning dawn, darling. We together, holding on. Tell me what you want, darling. We together, you and me.
Welcome to the apocalypse. It is me, your host, Ralph KK. Today I have an invitation for you. I would like to invite you to contribute to the podcast. There are, of course, many ways in which you can contribute, but particularly today, I would like to invite you to get a subscription, a $1 per month subscription. If you go over there to my Patreon, I have a monthly subscription of $1 per month. Today it is the year 2022. Today, what can you buy with $1? Probably you cannot even buy a hamburger. I mean, not even the cheap hamburgers you find in the fast food chains. I mean, with $1 you cannot even buy a cup of coffee, I don't know. Maybe with $1 you can buy one donut. Maybe. So you might ask yourself the question, what can my $1 per month do for you for the podcast? Okay, here is the kicker. This podcast is listened by tens of thousands of people. So, as I like to say, alone as one you are none, one together is all. Well, as I mentioned, this podcast is listened by tens of thousands of people. So if each one of you gets a $1 subscription, that is going to be a lot of money. One person standing inside the river will just get pulled by the stream. But a group of thousands of people standing in the river will not even move 1 inch. This is the power of group thinking. Anyhow, you like the podcast, support the podcast. Get your $1 subscription and be happy. So there's Patreon or buy me a coffee or even cryptocurrency, it's all up to you. So let's get going with the podcast today. You guys remember what we were talking about last time? We talked about permaculture, self-sufficiency, land snails, how to grow your giant land snails, and so on. We will get to that, this fun topic of growing your snails. But meanwhile, have you ever heard this phrase? This very famous phrase on the internet. You will own nothing and be happy. Quotation marks. The Great Reset. So it is no secret, and apparently all of this information has been out there for more than 10 years, even up to 20 years, even more. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, they are pushing for this agenda of carbon credits. I mean, saving the environment and so on. So they have this great agenda of the Great Reset. And in the past, they talked about it like publicly. They even posted their documents online. I mean, everything was very open until today, when everything is happening already. So these documents, they are no longer on the official website. You can still find these documents on the internet. I mean, like all around the internet. So basically, they call this agenda the 2032 agenda. And it is the great plan to de-industrialize and decarbonize the first world, the modern first world. So their plan is to greatly reduce consumption of fossil fuels and basically anything that produces CO2 and pollutes the environment. And they have this plan of the great 10 years of struggle. And according to them, by the year 2032, we will be living in an utopia where there are no longer fossil fuels being used or consumed, and everything is green energy, and we live in megapolises with skyscrapers and there's like flying cars or whatever. According to them, this is their utopia of the WEF. And according to their roadmap of these documents which they published, and they were online for several years. According to this roadmap, we are at the beginning of it, or it started in the year 2020. And check this out, according to this roadmap, the most difficult years is going to be 2023 and 2024, when things are gonna get real. And the SHTF is going full swing mode completely. So we have these governments of the world, these politicians, the elite, the billionaires, all of them, they're together in this plan to deindustrialize, to decarbonize societies. And if you have noticed, there's like this great big push to implement or to force upon society this idea of carbon credits. So according to them, like each person, they're gonna have like a carbon score. So this will measure how much carbon you consume per year, and you will have like an allowance per person per year, depending on what you do, what kind of lifestyle you have, and if you contribute to reduce this or to create more CO2, so this will affect your carbon score per year. And so far, it looks like the testing ground for all of this has been Australia. So you can see a lot of these crazy policies like already going full swing mode in Australia. Anyways, the main idea here, or the main question here, is that so the main question here is all this carbon credits idea, is this necessary, or there is some kind of nefarious plan behind this? Today I was watching on YouTube an interview. It is like this very famous scientist, which has been blacklisted everywhere. He has been like kicked out from everywhere, and you cannot even mention his name because then you will get blacklisted or whatever. So this guy, he's a researcher, and according to him, the environment is collapsing, and we have at most 10 years left of civilization existing as we know it, because the environment is collapsing. So this means that we will not be able to create food enough to feed the whole world. If we cannot produce food because of we have a bad weather, bad environment, so then there is going to be a lot of hungry people, and then we'll see the, you could say, collapse of countries, collapse of societies, because so people will start rioting. Anyways, according to this scientist, he's very famous, but you cannot mention his name because they will blacklist you. So according to this guy, we have crossed the point of no return. So we can expect at least, at most, 10 years left of the world as we know it today. And according to him, like environmentalists and the governments, the politicians, the whatever, they all know about this, and they know that the clock is ticking, and they know that life as we know it today, it is going to collapse. But although he's like a very famous voice in this topic, even before he came out with the data, there were other people saying like the same thing or similar things, but they put like a more modest timeline. They put a more modest timeline. So they put the complete collapse of civilization in a longer timeline, up to, let's say, the year 2050, 2070. So we have still 40 years left of the world as we know it. This the modest timeline, and also the modest idea that we can still fix the environment. So according to this guy, to this one scientist, there is no turning back. We already crossed the line of no return, and we have 10 years left of something somewhat stable. Before the environment collapses and you cannot grow food. And according to him, the governments, they know this. The elite, the politicians, all the rich people, they know it. And this could be a reason why most of the world governments, they are together in this 2030 agenda of the Great Reset, whatever, because they know what's coming. And what they are trying to do is to either slow down or to, here's the kicker, as they know that the world as we know it today is going to collapse, they want to create the collapse in the snap of a finger. So we have two options. Either they want just to collapse everything in one big hit, or they are trying to accelerate the changes in society to prolong the world as we know it today. So instead of 10 years, we have 20 years or 30 years. And the very funny thing is that if you see at what is happening today in Europe and in the USA, it makes you like really wonder like what is happening. Like all these policies, which are like all these policies created by the EU governments and politicians, they just are out of reasonable logic. They are counterproductive, and instead of helping the situation, they make things worse. And we are reaching like a tipping point where governments or countries or economies in Europe will collapse like pretty soon, because they literally have no gas, no oil to continue the level of industrialization which they currently have. So check this out, guys. In Europe we have several politicians which are creating policies that go against the will of the people, against the wishes of the general population. Like in Germany we have this politician called Annalena Baerbock, and she publicly came out and said that then Germany must continue with the sanctions. Mainly what is currently destroying Europe is the sanctions on energy, so like oil, gas, even coal. They cannot even buy coal from Russia because of these dumb sanctions. Yeah. Okay, so this politician called Annalena Baerbock, she came out and said that it doesn't matter what the German population says or wants. It doesn't matter what the people that voted for her want. And she doesn't care about what the general population of Germany had to say about the sanctions, because it is her choice to continue with these sanctions, regardless of the high inflation, the high prices in energy, like oil, gas, and coal. Yeah, regardless if this winter you're going to be cold and maybe dying a frozen death in your apartment, it doesn't matter what the German people say, because according to her, these destructive policies, they must continue. And this mood, this general disconnect between the politicians and the people, it is becoming so wide, like a huge gap that is turning into complete opposites, what the politicians want and what the people want. In general, the whole political system of the EU, they are creating these very destructive policies because these policies are destructing the Eurozone economy. It is creating deindustrialization, or as the WF calls this, decarbonization. The latest magic trick that they are trying to pull out of a hat in Germany is that they want to put a price cap on Russian oil. So this means that they want that Europe, the USA, and NATO countries to limit the price of how much Russian oil is going to be bought in the open market. And I mean, any smart economist could tell them that this will not work and it will actually do the opposite. Instead of reducing the price of energy worldwide, this will actually have the opposite effect. The price of oil in general is going to maybe double. If it gets really bad, it's going to triple. I mean, gas for sure in Europe is going to triple in winter. I'll tell you an example that I like to always say or discuss with my friends or group of people. Like, let's say you live in a neighborhood, yeah? You have many people living in the neighborhood, and you like to barter trade between your neighbors, yeah? So then I have like a neighbor a couple houses down the road, and I like to buy potatoes from him, yeah? So it is me, I go and buy potatoes from my neighbor, like a couple houses down the road, yeah? Okay, so then for some reason I argue with my neighbor and I start fighting with my neighbor for some whatever reason, yeah? And then I go behind the back of my neighbor and start spreading gossip with the other people in the neighborhood. And then this neighbor, he gets like a bad reputation, and then the other people in the neighborhood, they stop buying potatoes from him, yeah? Okay, so then it turns out that a couple of days later, this neighbor who was selling me potatoes, he finds out that it was me who created the rumor about him. And because of this, his business is like very bad and nobody's buying potatoes from him, yeah? So what do you think is going to happen after this? I mean, I started the rumor about my neighbor and then nobody wants to buy potatoes from him anymore. And it was me who created this, yeah? So then I go over to his house and I'm like, hey, yo, neighbor, what's up? I want some potatoes today. Can you sell me like 2 or 3 kilograms today? Tell me, what do you think is going to happen? What is the reaction of my neighbor? Is he going to sell me potatoes? Is he going to be angry, or what's going to happen? And the funny thing here is that, check this out, I am like a potato eater. Like most of my calories, they come from potatoes. So I greatly depend on my neighbor to sell me potatoes. If I don't get my potatoes, I cannot eat. Because most of my calories, they come from potatoes, yeah? So I go to my neighbor, I ask him to sell me 5 kilograms of potatoes. And then he says no, because he's angry. He says, no, I'm not going to sell you any potatoes. And then I start acting like all surprised, like, but how could you do this to me? You know, I buy potatoes from you. I depend on you for the potatoes. I mean, what am I going to do now? So then basically now, after I spread all these rumors, then my neighbor, he will sell me potatoes, and then I'm in a bad position because I got all my calories from these potatoes that I eat that I used to get from my neighbor. So this is the same situation in Europe. Europe used to get all the energy from Russia, gas, oil, coal, everything from them. Then they start putting sanctions on Russia, and then what did they expect it was going to happen? I mean, after all of this, did they expect Russia to continue selling them gas and oil and coal? I mean, this was pretty obvious, pretty predictable what was going to happen. And the worst thing is that Europe was not prepared at all to replace Russian energy. They had zero alternatives. And the most ridiculous thing is that probably they knew that to replace these sources of energy from Russia, it would take them 5 to 10 years to replace them. I mean, this affects how long it is going to take to replace these sources of energy. So the question is, did they know about this, or they were just stupid enough to not think about it? I mean, people in general cannot be so stupid not to consider what was going to happen. I mean, if you're going to go on a rampage against your neighbor, you should be prepared for the consequences. You should be prepared to for the storm that's coming for you. So if I was going to start a fight with my neighbor, I should have like a replacement for my potatoes. Either I would already have packed like 100 kilograms of rice, or I would have found already like another neighbor to sell me potatoes. So this is what Europe should have done 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And now, because of this, there is going to be several winters of crisis. So at least 10 years. And as we say here, the Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, the new beginning of a decarbonized Europe and decarbonized West. So again, check this out. The question here is why the EU continues with these counterproductive policies, because everything they do, it actually has the opposite effect to improve the situation. And it looks like as if they are trying like really hard to deindustrialize Europe, deindustrialize the Western world. I mean, it looks as if they are trying really hard on purpose to do this. Then the question is why? Why are they doing this? If you notice, or if you have heard about what has been happening in the Netherlands for the last month, 2 months, the government came out like really hard, and they are trying to take away the land from the farmers. So they are trying to state laws to take away the farms, the land from the farmers, so they cannot grow food anymore. Again, this is counterproductive. Why are they doing this in a time when the whole world needs food, when the whole of Europe needs food, needs energy? Why do they do something which is counterproductive? And here's an interesting fact for you. The Netherlands, up to last year, it was the #1 exporter of food worldwide, according to statistics. So according to statistics, the Netherlands was or is still the #1 exporter of food to the whole world. So then the government comes out and they try really hard to reverse this. They take away the land of the farmers and they try to reverse this. Why? Why are they directly attacking the food supply? Well, you see, in difficult times, it is not good for the government to have people who have access to cheap food, to cheap energy, to cheap things. You want the population to depend on you. So in case you need to give them some orders, they would agree to this. So you want to create dependence. If you have cheap food, cheap energy, cheap oil, cheap stuff, if everything cheap, the population has options and then they don't have to listen to you. But if you create dependence, if you create a situation where food is very expensive, where energy is expensive, where stuff is very expensive, then the population is in a really bad position, and then they depend on the government. I mean, if you look at history, if you look at the past, most authoritarian governments, they like to keep a population dependent on them and very well controlled. They don't like freedom. So you could say that the West is moving towards something more authoritarian, which is not what it used to be before. And then check this out, my own personal opinion about what's happening and what is going to happen is that we are moving towards some dystopia. The West, NATO, the Western countries, they are moving towards some dystopia. My favorite example would be if you have ever watched the film The Hunger Games, or if you read the book The Handmaid's Tale, or you watched the TV series of The Handmaid's Tale. In these two universes, there is the world, and it is a technologically advanced world. And what happened there is that the USA or Western governments, they became authoritarian regimes where, I mean, like very advanced technology, it exists, but it only exists for the very wealthy and for the people in power. This means politicians, government officials, the billionaires, and the friends of the people in power. Also, this technology and this high quality of life, it only exists for these people. And this is the 1% or maybe 5% of the population, and then everybody else, the rest of the population, they live like peasants, like a peasant existence. Peasants which live to serve the people in power. And so if you watch these films, these TV series, these universes, the people, they live like, I mean, the peasants, the civilians, the general population, they live like farmers, or like a very simple lives. And the only thing they do is to create, to work, to farm, or to produce stuff for the ruling class. And this is two universes in a future dystopia, or maybe a present dystopia, what is happening right now. So what if the West is moving towards something like this? That the people in power, they are secretly creating some kind of Western world that keeps the 1% living a comfortable life, while the rest of the people, the 99%, they live like peasants, a simple life of servitude to the ruling class. I mean, if you see what's happening today, right now, this is what it looks like. Countries, I mean Europe at least, it is deindustrializing. The average people, it is the people that are going to suffer. And those people in power, the politicians, they will not feel it. Because they have a bunch of money, they can still pay for the high energy bills, for the very expensive food, they can just pay for everything because they have the money and they have the power. But the rest of the people, the peasants, those are the ones that are going to suffer. So if you have not watched this film, The Hunger Games, I highly recommend you to watch it. It is a mirror, a reflection of what the world is turning into. I mean, maybe not in such an extreme way where there is Hunger Games, but this future dystopia of how modern feudalism has been implemented. We live in in the film, people live in a super high-tech modern world where the ruling class, they enjoy all the privileges of a very advanced society, while the peasants, they live like peasants. They live in wooden houses. They eat porridge for breakfast. They have they don't even have healthcare. If you get sick, you might just die of a cold or something. I don't know. Sounds pretty horrific, but I mean, we could be going to something like this. Even in this film, I mean, the Hunger Games, the ruling class, they have a abundance of food, abundance of energy, high-tech toys. Even they have they even have life and health enhancing medicines to live longer. All while the peasants, they live pretty dull, boring, painful lives, and they die at 30 or something, I don't know. There is this term talked about on the internet of modern feudalism, which might actually be true of what people, I mean, what the governments in the West, they want to do. If you've ever heard about the Great Reset, their catchphrase is, "You will own nothing and be happy." And according to the documents that they published the past 10-20 years, so the idea is by the 2030, usual citizens in Europe, they will live some kind of nomadic lifestyle where they own nothing. They just go around in let's say government-owned places, facilities, houses, apartments, jobs. So they live like nomads according to these documents. So people, they go, they check in into an apartment owned by the government. They stay there, they can sleep, they can eat food for free according to what's in your quota of carbon credits or whatever. So you can eat, you can sleep, you can, I don't know, use the appliances, play video games, listen to music, whatever. Go go work in a part-time job implemented or given to you by the government. And as the catchphrase says, you owe nothing, but you are happy. So you live a nomadic lifestyle in cities where you go from place to place doing whatever you want. You live a meager existence. I don't know. I mean, you should really check out all the stuff on the internet about this topic. And the documents, even though they were deleted from the website, I mean the PDFs, you can find them online. And there is a big accurate description of what these people they want to do by 2030. So Agenda 2030. Also, you should check out this book or TV series called The Handmaid's Tale. The author is Margaret Atwood, if I'm not mistaken, Margaret Atwood. So you should check it out. It is also something similar, like so according to what's in the story in this world. So there was some kind of revolution in the USA, and then some extremist ultra-Catholic group took power. And then they have an authoritarian government, where also the 1% they live a very, very comfortable life with all the privileges and comfort of high technology, a high technological life, While the peasants, they live a meager life, and they just live to serve those in power. And one of the main story drivers in this world of the Handmaiden's Tale is that there is some kind of a disease or something that makes women not being able to get pregnant anymore. So there is a few women who still can have children, but there is a very small minority of women who can have children. And therefore this drives the whole society to find these women who can still have children. But anyway, you should check out these two stories and have a glimpse into what the future might hold for you. Also, another cool film to watch is The Road. So this film, The Road, it's a very post-apocalyptic glimpse into the future. In this universe of The Road, there is just no civilization at all. Everything collapsed, and people, they just wander around trying to survive, and it's just complete chaos and anarchy. So let's say this is going to be your homework for today, to have a glimpse into the future so that you might be better prepared to survive the apocalypse. This of course includes how to grow your own giant land snails from Africa. So I'll probably do another podcast, another segment with something like 10-15 minutes of podcast of how to grow your snails. It's not difficult, it's kind of easy, let's say. And snails, they're a very good source of protein. So don't forget, if you're interested, support the podcast, get your $1 subscription, or just make a one-time donation with this website, Buy Me a Coffee. So the link's in the description. Contribute if you like the podcast, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget, I will be here with you during the apocalypse and after the apocalypse.
colored cars? What about knickerbockers, socks, and all the white-collar jocks? No, I'm not a skeptic, I might be a loon. I'm always smiling and I love a good mood. Confussing laws, muñeca dolls. Let's drop it all and just draw straws. What about a black sheep in a human herd? What about ribbons and bluebirds? What about innocence in the eye? Makes me start to cry. I'm not a Frenchman, I'm not a maniac. I'm simply the epitome of a romantic. Conical bras, muñeca dolls, Pinocchio, Barbie, and Ken should be locked in the ground.
Welcome to the Polar Homestead. We learn finance, permaculture and prepping, a modern view of the world. Don't forget, freedom is in your hands. Stay safe and vigilant, friends. And now your host, Ralph KK. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
At the gallery, I tried to buy a glass of wine. Said you haven't got a young spin worthy of my time. I'm hunting for a man whose touch is forever cold. I see you with fingers in gold. Next day I carried out my static joy.
Hey, it's me, your host Ralph KK. Welcome to the apocalypse. What a beautiful morning today. September 14th of the year 2022. There is no day like today to live your life to its fullest. Despite all the weird things happening around us. By the way, guys, did you know that in England we have a new king? Did you know this? Sometimes years pass by and just nothing happens during these years. But sometimes the events of years happen in days. This is the life. So last week at the same time, we got a new king, a new prime minister. All while at the same time, the economy of the United Kingdom is being decimated. It is collapsing. Not only the United Kingdom, but also Germany. Like the economy of Germany is completely destroyed because they have actually stopped the flow of gas to Europe, to Germany, to zero. Can you imagine this? Just around zero. And this is just before the winter. I mean, what are people going to do? How are people going to survive? I have no idea. Because in Germany, the weather can get quite cold. So it does go to minus, so it goes under zero. There is snow, it is cold, and mostly the houses in Europe, they are not entirely made to be completely insulated. So the materials and the way that they are constructed, it lets some air to come in the house, so that kind of the house is breathing. It is a different method of construction to that of Nordic countries, which live next to the almost next to the North Pole. Yeah, so the construction of houses in Nordic countries, the houses, they are completely insulated, so there is no breathing, so that all the heat is kept inside. So the houses in Germany, they are not entirely insulated, and this way the houses can get cold or very cold, so you need some kind of heating inside. And as you might have heard, there is an energy crisis in Germany and all of Europe. So how are people going to heat up their homes? I've got no idea. Although this year might be the crisis of energy, next year 2023 is going to be the crisis of food. So this is why you want to be 2-3 steps ahead of everybody else. Like this energy crisis that is unfolding right now, a lot of people, or many people, could see it far away in the distance from back at the beginning of the year. January, February, March, earlier this year, people already saw the coming energy crisis. And today, you can see in the distance the coming food crisis. Because this year everything was like so chaotic, so terrible, so there were not enough crops grown, and the crops they were not plentiful. There is actually much less crops harvested this year than compared to previous years, and that means that the supply of food is going to be much less next year. So starting 2023 we will see like a food crisis, and it will keep growing until we have crops, new crops, which are usually grown in summer. So from January till summer 2023 we will see this food crisis starting to unfold. That's why the best time to prepare it is today. Buy your pasta, 100 kilograms of pasta. Pasta lasts 20 years, so you cannot lose if you buy pasta. And then start growing your potatoes. Potatoes, they give you food in a 1-to-10 ratio, so you put 1 potato and you can expect to get 10 potatoes in return. If you take care of your potato plant, you fertilize it, then the conditions are good. Well, as I've talked before about other hacks and tricks, then you should stockpile food, but in a smart way. A way to get nutrition from long-term supplies, this is by getting some seeds to germinate. So you can eat the germinated seeds, or you can get the greens directly from the seeds. And I just don't mean like seeds for plants. I'm talking about like grains. You can sprout lentils, chickpeas, wheat, all kinds of stuff. You can almost sprout anything that is in seed form. And if you can eat the grain like it is, then it means that you can eat the greens and the sprouted grains. And my favorite thing to sprout is usually lentils. They are like very long storage food, and they are usually very easy to sprout. Even after many years you can sprout lentils. And the germinated lentils, they are tasty to eat them as it is. They're very soft, very sweet, and they taste somewhat like lentils, somewhat like greens. So basically you can make some kind of soup. You can drop there the sprouted lentils, and then you will get like a lot of nutrition from this. And if you sprout the lentils and you grow some greens from the lentils, also the greens, they will be highly nutritious. And so the trick here is that you can keep these lentils for years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, depends how you are in what kind of storage you put them. I mean, Today is the time to prepare. If you had started preparing this year in January, February, if every time you went to the supermarket, you bought one extra bag of food, of rice, of lentils, or chickpeas. If each time you went to the supermarket, you bought just one extra bag, from that time till today, like 1 year, you would have already got like a big supply of food, which could last for a couple months, maybe years. And this would not take you any effort. So here the main idea is to prepare today. There is no better day to start than today. Then if you're looking into long-term solutions, well, like I've been talking about this before, you need some source of protein. So you need some kind of animals. If you really want to grow animals, the best thing would be rabbits, but you need some kind of space, some kind of garden, and the climate not to be so cold, I would say. And if you're adventurous, you could try growing indoors some giant snails from Africa. So as I've been promising in the previous podcast to explain how to grow the snails, yeah? So basically, they are called ground snails for a reason. So these giant snails from Africa, they don't climb trees, they don't go up the trees, and they don't live at the top of the trees. So they're called ground snails because they live in the ground. So this means that the place keep them, it doesn't need to be like a big tall aquarium. So you need ideally the space where they live to be flat. So let's say a container 1 meter long with, let's say, 30 centimeters high, 25 centimeters high, they would crawl around the container on the ground, on the substrate. They would not try to climb to the top and try to escape or whatever. So mostly they're ground animals. And the snails, they are fairly easy to keep. You just need to give them a substrate where they live. So they mostly like to live in dirt, so you can get some black dirt at the shop. You fill the aquarium, the container. Okay, not aquarium, the terrarium, because it's going to be full of dirt for ground animals. So the terrarium, you fill it with black dirt, and so you would try to make it something like the bottom of a forest. So you need some dry leaves, some branches, some pieces of wood, some moss, so that the snails, they would go around and hide under the leaves, hide under the trunks. And you can also put some seeds into the soil. The seeds, they will sprout, and then greens will come out, and then the snails, they will eat the greens, also getting some nutrition from there. So you can try to build some kind of mini ecosystem. Although it is not necessary, the snails, they can just live in the black dirt, and you can just feed them vegetables. Vegetables, a source of protein, and they also need a supplement of calcium for them to grow their shell. And the important thing here, the key thing, is that the snails need a constant temperature of 25 Celsius and above. If it goes under 25, the snails, they will not feel comfortable, and it could also provoke them to go into hibernation. as if they think winter is coming, so they go to sleep for a couple of months and then they come back when it's really hot. So in their native habitat, the snails, they live in climates which is 35 plus Celsius. So it's imperative to keep the temperature above 25 Celsius if you want to be successful, if you want your snails to grow. And the cycle for snails, it is, for them to produce offspring, it is just crazy. They can produce offspring several times per year, and each batch they can have dozens of little snails. So growing snails is highly productive. Giant African land snails, highly productive food production for the times of apocalypse. You probably will want to go to YouTube, watch some videos and see what these creatures are all about. But like I said, it's extremely easy. It's really easy to grow these animals as a source of protein. So what you want to do is to have some area in your house where you can put something like a metallic shelf to host the terrariums. So you would put several terrariums or containers on this shelf so that they are growing spread to the side. So let's say 25 centimeters tall, 35 centimeters tall, and then to the side, let's say from 60 to 90 centimeters. Well, let's say 90 centimeters. So then you put like a metallic shelf and you can have several of these containers. In a house which could be 2 meters tall, you could put maybe 5 containers. 5 containers in a comfortable setup. 5 containers stock up on the metallic shelf. And in each container, you could have several snails. Depends how big they are. If they are like really big ones, like adults, but yeah, actually you want to grow them from babies. So snails which are like 1 year old, they are something like, let's say 5 to 5 centimeters. So in one of these containers you could have a dozen snails. So this is a very sustainable source of protein for the times of apocalypse. Probably you could try to do this as a side project, like something like a hobby, and then to develop it into like industrialized production of food for your own house, for your own needs. But yeah guys, things are getting tough. The time to prepare, it is today. And next year we will see the food crisis escalate. So you need to prepare today, not in 6 months, not in 1 year. You start preparing today, you secure your food sources, and then you try to survive the apocalypse.
Rumbling from the streets to the
Welcome to the Polar Homestead. We learn finance, permaculture and prepping. A modern view of the world. Don't forget, freedom is in your hands. Stay safe and vigilant, friends. And now your host, Ralph KK. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Hello and welcome, it is me, your host Ralph KK. And welcome to the apocalypse. Today we have a very interesting show about the collapse of civilization. Civilization. The collapse. Or so they say. Actually, for countries, for nations, for empires collapse, it usually takes many years. In the past, it could take centuries, decades, usually like a very long time. So don't you expect for society and the human civilization to suddenly collapse in one day. It seems that it will be something like a slow bleed, like a slow decay, gradual slow decay. Okay, so check this out. What we see today, it is the result of many years of bad policies. I mean, like the energy crisis we see today. This did not just happen overnight. This took probably 10 years, 20 years to develop into the crisis that we see today. For example, I mean, if you really want to trace the origin of this all the way to the beginning, partially the energy crisis today in Europe, or not partially but mostly, it is because Europe does not have sufficient energy to continue the level of industrialization which they currently have. So they don't have enough energy, enough power, because they have been buying for, let's say, 20 years energy products from mostly Russia. So this is gas, oil, coal, all of this they got it very, very cheap. And like, for example, official statistics, it says, or it shows that Germany had a leverage of 100 times. So Germany, they had a 100 times leverage the input of energy versus the output of economic power or GDP. So supposedly they were buying like 20 billion. So supposedly they were buying per year up to $20 billion of energy from Russia, and the result output this was $2 trillion of energetic output. So this is a 100 times leverage. This, of course, if you look at this from the sidelines, this seems something like insanity. And so the funny thing is that they expect this thing to last forever. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that 100 times leverage economic output, depending on a very fragile source of energy, this would put Germany in a great, this would put Germany in a very precarious situation, in a weakened state, with a very big weakness. So check this out. If you want to really trace back all of this to the beginning of everything, you have to go back 20 years, around the year 2000. Around the year 2000, the construction of the gas pipeline going directly from St. Petersburg, somewhere in the area, all the way to Germany through the sea. This pipeline was called, or is called still, Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2. It started construction around the year 2000. And the main idea was that the flow of energy, the flow of gas would go freely through the sea all the way to Germany, and then the German dream of almost free cheap energy to continue their 100 times leverage of economic output would be like some kind of a utopia for the Germans, getting all this free energy. Okay, so they were constructing this pipeline for 10 years. Around the year 2010, the pipeline was almost finished. It was something more than 90% finished. But throughout all these years, there were many countries extremely opposed to the construction of this pipeline and for this pipeline to be finished. Mainly the USA, the United States of America. For 10 years they were trying like really hard to stop this project, because it is not good for the USA if there is peace in Europe, if there is peace between Europe and Russia, if everybody gets along, it is not good for the USA, because it puts them in it gives them like a weak hand. They have no leverage over Europe. So it's not good for the USA if Germany is good friends with Russia and they have all this free energy. So for 10 years they were trying to stop this, and after a lot of hard work, you could say, from the Americans. So around the year 2010, maybe a little bit further, maybe 2011, 2012, the construction stopped. Well, okay, it didn't stop, it was paused. And it was mainly because of the objections caused by the Americans. And it was mainly because of the objections raised by the Americans and all these excuses that they had to say to both parties, that they could not do this because of this or because of that. Okay, so by the year 2010, the pipeline was almost finished. It was something more than 90% done. And the Americans had tried really hard, and the project was paused. So if you look into that perspective, the year today, 2022, it's been 12 years from the year 2010. And And the very funny thing is that the pipeline Nord Stream, it was completed 1 year ago, the year 2021. The pipeline was completely finished and it was about to be open. And even though for these also extra 10 years, the Americans, they were finding all kinds of excuses to stop this project, and they were putting all kinds of sanctions on companies that were constructing this pipeline. So literally they were putting sanctions and forcing companies, European companies, to stop working together with the Russians, so this pipeline would never finish. So if you look at this information, they were trying really hard for 20 years to stop this project, 22 years, something like that. And apparently they succeeded, because the pipeline was not opened, even though it is finished. It is completely finished. Everything is completely new, modern, high-tech, whatever. It is finished, but it is closed, and nobody knows if it will ever be open. So by looking at my example, you can see that it was 2 decades in the making for this dependence to increase it, to continue from the part of Germany. And if the pipeline would have been opened, then perhaps Europe would not be where it is today. So what it is also really funny, it is that the Germans and Europe, they knew in which situation they were. They knew their great dependence on Russian energy. And then suddenly today, this year, in 2022, they decided to start putting sanctions on Russian energy. And they decided to suddenly stop buying Russian energy. Even though the current level of industrialization which exists in Europe depends on Russian energy entirely. And like I mentioned, the leverage is 100 times leverage. And the leaders in Europe, they suddenly decided to get rid of this leverage and to face the music somehow. I mean, it's something like a mystery to what the leadership in Europe was or is currently thinking by these actions. Okay, anyways, so currently they want to find a replacement for Russian energy. And so the politicians, leaderships, everybody in Europe knows that to replace the sources of gas and to put the new infrastructure and to get everything to the level that it was last year is going to take them something like 5 years, 10 years, if they can find new sources of energy from other countries like Nigeria, for example. They want to buy gas and oil from Nigeria, but the thing is that there is no infrastructure in Nigeria to bring all the gas to Europe, so they would need to build all of this, and it's going to take 5 to 10 years minimum in an optimistic scenario. So I mean, not a lot of people know this, but there is no way to keep the level of industrialization which Europe currently has. There is just no way to keep it. And so when the leaders are telling the population that they are going to somehow magically fix this, they are just lying to the population, because there is absolutely no way to replace the cheap energy that they used to get. And the leverage was 100 times, and there is just no way to replace it. So when this guy in Germany when he goes to his people and he tells them like, hey, you know, this winter you just gonna have to ride it out just this winter and like get some wood and start heating your home with some wood, but like next year is going to be better. So when he says this, he's lying, and he knows that he's lying, and all the politicians know that they are lying, and everybody at the top levels of government, they know that they are lying. They know that it will take 5 years, 10 years to replace this energy, if they can find the replacement. So Europe is about to be deindustrialized. Imagine that you have 100% today, and then tomorrow you will lose 90% of your industrialization because there are no sources of energy. Like I've been watching videos on YouTube of people in, I think it was in Italy, in Spain, in the cafes, in the restaurants. By government decree, they are forced to use candles in the evening after 6-7 p.m. I think they have to switch off all the lights, and they have to turn on the candles in the restaurant. And there is people eating there, and they are inside the restaurant, and there's just candles everywhere. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous. This is something like going back to the, I don't know, to the Victorian England or something, where people used to have candles. And actually in Victorian England, I think that there was electricity already. So this is something like going back to the Renaissance or something. So we're going back 300 years back into the past to a deindustrialized Europe. It's kind of funny and kind of pathetic at the same time. And myself as an European citizen, I completely disagree with the posture of the government. And I think that the current leadership is just doing the wrong things. And when the government, when politicians in Europe, when they clearly lie to your face, they don't have a place in the government. They should be removed, and a new leadership should be found that has answers for the current crisis. So this guy Scholz and his team, I've got no idea what he's doing, because he knows the situation. He knows Germany is about to be deindustrialized, and he knows that it's not only this winter that is going to be cold. It's going to be 5 winters, 10 winters at least, of people burning wood inside their houses, and people having to use candles in the evening to get some light. So you all know what to do as a conscious citizen. You have to get your potatoes, you have to get your pasta, and maybe you should get a couple giant African ground snails, and you should start your snail production to be self-sufficient, to have some sources of protein. If you've ever been to France, there is a very delicious dish called escargots. It's these small little creatures cooked in butter in the oven, and these delicious small snails, I'm quite sure they taste exactly or the same to this giant snail from Africa. So if you listen to my past podcasts, I've got there some tips and introductions on how to start your snail farm, your indoor snail farm. There is no time like today to prepare, and with all this deindustrialization that is about to happen, it will not be quick and easy. It is going to be a slow and painful decay of civilization, decay of society. It's all downhill from here. Well, at least this is for the West, for Europe, for the USA. It is as if the Western civilization has reached a peak. Something like we are at the peak of the Roman Empire, and Rome is in flames and it's about to collapse. So you get your potatoes, start grinding your potatoes, and survive the apocalypse.
Miles from the city of Hades, this Gila monster is feeling its age. It's getting hotter in the trailer, she said. They used to call me the venomous kid. Then the moon will set and the desert will die. Creatures retreat to their burrows and cry. We kept the power we get from the womb, deep in the labyrinthian family home. I let my final monologue fully read. Immortal family, I regret not a thing. Then the moon will set and the desert will die. Creatures retreat to their burrows and cry. They cry, they cry.
Sign my name in a drop of desperation drips upon the letter to her, my lover's eyes, a requiem for what is gone. Men both marching on their way, a malefica sorrow, and never from the dead will the mortal man escape the terror's close. Flee like the desert sun to a place where lovers lie. Oh, forgive me and take the ancient candy past, little darling. We're on the wilderness at last. Forget about the past. Found my letter and knew I had gone to deliver on. I laid them four boys down to rest. Their eyes would never see the sun. But we are riding through the past. My spirit drew her near. Upon the spider stones stood her brother's bones, the man whom she once feared. Fleeing like the desert sun to a place where lovers lie. Oh, Maria, now come and blew her off the sands with the jackal who run the wilds of his land. The
Welcome to the Polar Homestead. We learn finance, permaculture, and prepping, a modern view of the world. Don't forget, freedom is in your hands. Stay safe and vigilant, friends. And now your host, Ralph KK. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
My fellow humans, welcome to the apocalypse. This is me, your host, Ralph KK, and this is the podcast. So we are literally here. It is autumn. It is cold outside. It is rainy outside. The leaves, they are turning red. So pretty much everywhere you go, you can see the red forest with the red foliage, and there is many or a lot of autumn vibes. If you are into Halloween and that sort of stuff, it is soon to come. We are something like 4 days away, I think. Actually, it's 29 today, so we are 2 or 3 days away from the Halloween festivities. And if you're superstitious or not, supposedly from ancient times, people believed that the veil of reality would become thinner, specifically around this date, the 1st of November. So many cultures across the world, across centuries, across millennia, they all had the same belief that during this date, the veil of reality would become thinner, and therefore humans would be able to see more than what they usually see. So, for example, humans could see either spirits or creatures from another place, from the other side, from another dimension, from an alternative reality. And what it is really funny, really interesting, and really conspiratorial, it is that all these many people from many cultures, from many places, across centuries and millennia, they all had the same belief that on this date you could see the other side, that you could communicate with the spirits, that you could talk to them, that you could see them, that they could perhaps leave you messages. Anyhow, fear not. If you do not have any supernatural abilities, you do not need to go far away to see some strange things happening in the world. Perhaps we are in the middle of apocalypse or in pre-apocalyptic times. If you've been following the news, like around 2 days ago, the Nord Stream pipelines, they were sabotaged under the water. So Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, they were sabotaged. They have a big hole in the pipes, and all the seawater went inside and all the gas came outside. And as it stands today, these 2 pipelines, they are unsalvageable. And as it stands today, these two pipelines, they are unsavable. So these pipelines, they are finished. I mean, all the seawater, it came inside the pipelines, so they are filled with seawater, and all the salt in the seawater and the minerals and stuff, it's going to basically corrode the metal. So these two pipelines, they are full and they are done. I mean, it took Russia like more than 10 years, 20 years, something like 20 years to build the Nord Stream 2. And it is funny that some people, they say, oh no, they will fix it in a couple of days, couple of weeks at maximum. But yeah bro, it ain't happening. If the big if they were to be fixed, it would take minimum 1 year. If they were to be fixed, and under optimal conditions, it would take something like 1 year for them to be fixed. So I don't know, like, people are just delusional. We are facing mass hysteria. I don't know, but people saying that this can be fixed in a couple of days. I mean, maybe it's some kind of coping mechanism for the upcoming winter, because without this gas, pretty much it's going to be a tough life, a very tough life in Europe. There will be a minimal amount of gas, but it's going to be immensely expensive. Only the very rich, the 1%, will be able to get this gas. And then the rest, the 99%, the peasants, will be fighting on the streets for the scraps left over by the rich. If you've been listening to this podcast for a couple of months already, you would already know what I'm going to say. Get your pasta, get your potatoes, and prepare for the apocalypse, because it is here. I mean, as a fellow European, where do we go from here? The British pound is collapsing, the euro is collapsing, the British economy is completely collapsing, the German economy is completely collapsing. What do we do? Where do we go from here? Nobody seems to have an answer, but the people, they are fighting back, or so they say. If you've also been following the news the last couple of days, a new ultra-far-right government has been elected in Italy. Or so the mainstream media, they want you to believe that this woman that was elected in Italy, they say that she's worse than Mussolini. Can you believe this? I just hear this and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So check this out. She's a housewife, she's a mother. She's Christian. She's against immigration, against illegal immigration. So like against all those people coming from Africa in boats, trying to cross on boats from Africa to Europe. She's against this. She's against the massive woke indoctrination happening in Europe, in the world, in the USA. She's against consumerism, against capitalism. She's pro rights of people, pro socialist initiatives to help the people. I mean, and the mainstream media, they want to categorize her as something as bad as Mussolini, as something that is radical and against democracy. I mean, can you believe this? This is kind of funny. We are already in October, so there is something like 2 months left until winter starts. And today, what do we see in Europe? We see groups of people already gathering and protesting. And check this out. What is very funny, very suspicious, very interesting is that for the last couple 2 or 3 weeks, there has been huge protests and demonstrations, which you will not see any information about this in mainstream media. So there is people protesting in Germany against the government of Scholz and against his policies, against the government. And can you guess what they were asking for, what they were demanding? They were demanding for all sanctions to be lifted and for the opening of this pipeline, the Nord Stream 2. So the people were demanding for the government to stop all this nonsense and to open the pipeline and to get all this cheap gas for the German economy to continue with their 100 times leverage of energetic input versus economic output. And ideally everybody would be happy and evolve into superior beings and an incredible utopia or something like this. Anyways, so it is very funny, very interesting, very suspicious that people were already protesting and they were demanding for the pipeline to be open, and then suddenly today, 2 or 3 weeks later after the protest, which are happening daily, so after the protest started, suddenly, suspiciously, the pipeline is sabotaged and completely destroyed. So then opening the pipeline, it is not an option anymore. And now it doesn't matter how much the people protest and try to pressure the government, the pipeline will not be open, the situation will not be fixed. Nobody will be getting that cheap gas anymore. But regardless if the pipeline is still there or not, regardless of this, the people will keep protesting, and the current governments, they will be taken out of power and new people will be elected. And what is going to happen is that we will have populist movements again. I mean, these kind of things, they go in cycles through history. And what's next to come is that maybe some extreme populist movement will be elected to deal with the current situation. Because where we are right now, it is that the rich, they live a very comfortable life and they just keep overworking the peasants till the last drop. Therefore, there is so much social inequality that the peasants are getting very angry. And then it is time for the peasants to rise and to change the government to populist movements so that everybody gets their equal share. So this is what we are going to start seeing in Europe. In Europe and in the rest of the world, most likely. And you know, if World War III happened or started right now, like many, I mean, the top governments, they have like such crazy weapons that I am not sure like civilization will survive or not. It just depends how crazy it gets. So check this out. China has like some very crazy weapons which will be used in the next big World War III, you know. So for example, I was watching online yesterday. There is a video of a swarm of drones that the Chinese created, and the Chinese military, they have it. So it is a swarm of drones. They act collectively and they behave like insects. So like a swarm of bees, like a swarm of locusts. So they are very cheap to make. Their artificial intelligence is very advanced. So the drones, they don't behave like one individual. They behave like a swarm. So 100 drones, they think collectively and they move in sync together. So what can you do with these drones? So in a war, in the battlefield, you can attach an explosive charge to each one of them, and you can send them out into the battlefield to destroy key infrastructure, key targets, or people in itself. Like some, for example, you can set it out to chase like a one person, like some very important person. You send 100 of these drones to find one person, and they explode at the same time, and nobody would survive. Or you send these drones to destroy like a building, or like a command center, or like a ship in the sea. So the uses for this, it's infinite, it's endless. How would you deploy them? You can deploy them from the ship. I mean, you can deploy them from the sea, from ships in the sea, from military vehicles near the war zone, and also you could deploy them from space. So there are many countries out there who have like these very crazy weapons, and a lot of these weapons, they are not known to the public, or even they are not known to other adversary countries. So the next world war, it is going to be amazingly crazy, destructive, and dangerous. I mean, ideally nothing would happen. Human civilization would keep on growing, evolving, getting better, and keep on going for a couple more 100 years, thousands of years, I don't know. But today, the threat of nuclear annihilation, it is. So if for some reason humanity manages to survive a couple more decades into the future, just for some reason, because how things look like today, everything looks very bleak, and perhaps we might not make it. But anyways, in case we might survive a couple more decades, then we might have some kind of interesting future. And today I will give you some homework. There is a video game called Detroit Become Human. Probably you're not going to play it, but you can watch it on YouTube, online, the gameplay. It is mostly some kind of storytelling game, kind of. I mean, you mostly watch the story and you play like a little bit. So anyways, in this world, in the future, this is approximately an accurate perception of how the future might look like. So in probably 20-30 years, around 30 years, the future will look like this. So the homework for you is to watch some videos and to see this video game, Detroit Become Human. So you just watch the gameplay on YouTube. And this is extremely accurate on how the world would look like in possibly 30 years. If we don't destroy everything and we don't blow ourselves up. And the next topic for the next podcast will be related to this. I mean, for you to understand it, you see how the future might look like, and then you will have a better understanding. So this is your homework, and then next podcast we will have a very interesting conversation. And I'll see you soon in the apocalypse.
Where do we go? Wasn't there someplace near the road? The sky starts to crack, the heavens unfold. We tremble unsure, but now so to the bone. Drink from this wine, dry
Welcome to the Polar Homestead. We learn finance, permaculture and prepping. A modern view of the world. Don't forget, freedom is in your hands. Stay safe and vigilant, friends. And now your host, Ralph KK. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Welcome to the apocalypse. This is me, your host, Ralph KK. And this is the podcast. So if anybody of you noticed, I've been away for something like 2 weeks. And exactly what happened, you would not believe me, but I got a terrible case of food poisoning. I was completely out 1 week and I'm still recovering. And the culprit was some stale rice. Oh yes, oh yeah. So if you're a prepper, in the prepping community, it is common knowledge that you have to cycle out some of your inventory. So last week I was cycling out some rice. So the rice was packed in a plastic bag. It was airtight, and it was something like 2 years old. And if you looked at the rice, it just looked completely normal. It just looked perfect. It was just white rice. There was no mold, nothing strange about it. Just like some very common, very simple, common looking white rice, nothing out of the ordinary. So the bag, it was airtight. I opened it, I took out all the contents, and everything seemed fine. The only thing that seemed strange, it was the smell. The rice had some kind of peculiar smell. It was, I checked it out, and what I thought that this was, some grains, they have this particular smell of the mill where the grains are processed. Yeah, it is a very particular smell, and if you know what this smell is, you can recognize it. So I had a look at the rice, and it had this particular smell, which smell like a mill. Like all grains, they have this smell, and some grains, they have this smell more than others. And this rice in particular, so at the time I didn't think about it, I didn't notice, but now if I look back in retrospective, so the rice, it had this kind of chemical smell, this smell like from the mill, and it was like very strong. So at the time I didn't think anything about it. Yeah, so I just proceed to boil the rice, cook it as usual, and so I cooked it, and then I just ate it just as I would any other rice any other day. And oh my goodness, you would not believe what happened. Like something like 2 or 3 hours later, my state was terrible. You could say, or I could say, that it felt as if I had drank some poison from the Middle Ages or something. I had a terrible pain in the center of my stomach. It was just like if they were trying to stab me with a knife or something. I just had terrible pain. I couldn't even move. I couldn't sit in any position. And I just knew that something was wrong. So at the time, I had already got sick. So 3 hours later, I felt as if I had some poison in my stomach. And I didn't think much of it because, like sometimes you get sick, whatever. And I just treated this like some common or whatever kind of food poisoning. Like again, sometimes you don't think too much of things, but in reality there could be like some serious cases of food poisoning which can be like very dangerous. But at the time I didn't think much about it. I just thought that, oh yeah, I got sick, whatever, we'll see what happens tomorrow. So the symptoms, it felt like I had some poison. I had eaten some poison and I had terrible pain in the center of my stomach. This was the whole night. I also had some fever, and the culprit, so probably it was like some fungi or some kind of mold, because the rice, it looked perfect. There was nothing odd about it. Maybe there was no black mold, but it could have been just some white mold there, which you cannot see. So it was most likely fungi, because when you have like food poisoning caused by bacteria, the symptoms are completely different. So the fungi, it is growing in the rice. It creates toxins, and then they stay in the rice. And it doesn't matter if you boil the rice, the toxins, they stay there. So you ingest the toxins, and this is kind of poison in your body with the toxins, and there is no way around it. So 3 hours later, I felt this explosion happening inside of my stomach. Had terrible nausea. I felt dizzy, didn't know what to do. And here was my first mistake. When you have food poisoning, so like you have two options. You can either write it out like a man, or you can go puke. You can go vomit. So I just write it out like whatever, like things will become better, yeah? So this was a mistake. So because most likely, so the rice was full of toxins from fungi, so your body, it cannot process this. It's not the same as a bacterial infection when your body can fight the bacteria. So the toxins, they are there, they are in your stomach, they're in your body, and they are poisoning you. So my mistake was that I did not go out there to the loo and puke, If I had done that at the moment, I would have not got so sick. So this is for you people who are preppers. Take notes. So when you get food poisoning, there are different sources. So it can be bacterial, it can be toxins from fungi, it can also be viral, and they all have different symptoms. So if you get food poisoning from fungi, from toxins, from mold, you should definitely go out and puke, because you do not want to keep that in your body. So my mistake was that I did not go out there to puke. I just kept it in my body, and I just tried to write it out like a man. And oh boy, that was such a mistake. The whole night I was in terrible pain in my stomach. I could not sit, I could not lie down, I could not do anything. Even if I drank water, the pain wouldn't go away, and the pain just stayed there. At the time, I really thought that I was going to die, and I was very close to call the ambulance to go to the hospital. But like I said, if you're a prepper, you're strong, you're a man, you try to write out things, yeah? So I just tried to lie down, tried to sleep, and I just carefully monitor my condition. So it was 3 hours later the symptoms started, and then so the time went by, and I think I felt the worst like 4 hours later, and then the symptoms just slowly started to go down. And because the symptoms, they became less what they initially were, so this is a signal that the symptoms reached their peak, and then you're just coming down for whatever thing you got. And what I should have done at the time, yeah, when I just first noticed the symptoms 3 hours later, when I first started to get sick, yeah. So what you are supposed to do is you grab a big glass of water, you drink the water, and then you go to the toilet and you try to puke, you try to get rid of all this nasty stuff that you were trying to digest, yeah. And then after your stomach is clean, you have to go back to the fridge and you have to drink some milk. 1 glass of milk, 2 glasses of milk. This is usually what doctors recommend when you drink some kind of poison. The first thing they tell you to do is to drink some milk, and this somewhat it can cancel out or make the symptoms less of what they would be. So pay attention, take notes. First you drink the water, you go puke, and then after your stomach is clean, you go drink some milk. And just by doing this, you will be like so much better. And me, old silly me, who tried to be manly, who tried to write it out, I did not do nothing. I just stayed there in bed, just trying to drink water. And the whole night it was like a nightmare. So it was 8 hours, 10 hours in pain, constant pain in my stomach. Like somebody was trying to stab me with the knife in the center of the stomach. But the symptoms, they peaked and then they started to go down. So like because of this, I did not call the ambulance, I did not go to the hospital. And so when you're a prepper, when you are storing food for a long time, you have to be very careful how you store it, how you keep it, and when you consume it, you have to check. You have to look for any signs of deterioration of the food that you have stored. And so the most dangerous food that you can store is rice, because it can actually kill you if the rice is bad or whatever. So rice can be very dangerous. The other grains are not as dangerous and usually are much safer than storing rice. But also, I mean, you need rice because it has amino acids, nutrients, which other grains don't have. So anyways, you have to keep this in your prepper pantry. Anyhow, you should always be careful with long storage food. So the next day, I felt as if a truck had hit me on the street and they just left me there on the road. I mean, my arms, they were like spaghetti, you know, my legs, they were just like spaghetti. I had no strength, I couldn't move, I couldn't walk. I drank water, so my body was dehydrated, yeah. So I drank water, it just didn't do anything. I was not absorbing the water. I was not absorbing the electrolytes, the salts. Still, I tried to write it out like a man. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't call the doctor. So I started to drink water with electrolytes, a powder solution. I also took some probiotics, and I was basically eating some light soup. I got some fresh chicken. I super boiled it, just in case, right? So I super boiled it. I was drinking the soup. You could say I was drinking the soup with some toasted bread and crackers. I was like this for 3 whole days because I couldn't eat anything. I mean, I had still this terrible pain in my stomach. So the symptoms, they kept becoming less and less and less. So, I mean, this is a sign that you're not so bad, that you're becoming better, right? So all of this process, it took 1 whole week. And after that, I mean, I'm kind of okay, but not really. I'm still recovering. I'm still eating some kind of soup with some kind of crackers, but oh boy, you need to be careful when you're eating your food from storage. You have to be very careful. You need to check that the food is safe to eat. Another dangerous thing to eat, you could say, is canned food, but that you canned yourself. So like pickled stuff, any stuff, in any kind of stuff that you pickle and you can yourself. If it's stored for like a long time, so there in the liquid there a nasty bacteria that could have botulism. This can kill you. So again, you have to be careful, and you cannot smell it, you cannot see it. There could be no signs of it, and it could be there, and it could kill you. I mean, there are really no methods to know if something is spoiled if there are no like visible signs. There are almost no methods to know if this is okay or not okay to eat. I mean, if it is not visual, there just are no methods unless you use like a laboratory or something to check if there is bacteria or fungi in the food, yeah? So when you're eating food that's been stored for a long time, always start with small portions. So in case that the food is bad, the symptoms would not be so terrible. So let's say you are opening some rice or some rice and some oatmeal that's been stored for like 5 years, 10 years. So first you wash it with water like very, very carefully, like several times. This can also help to take away whatever it's in the grains or in the rice or in the oatmeal. And then you cook it completely until it's almost melting or whatever. So you super cook it, and also again you take away the water that is already been boiled. So also some of the stuff will come out in case there is something. And then what you do is, so the food is ready. What you do is you eat a spoon and then you see how you react. If you are still okay after 3 hours, 5 hours, then it means the food is safe to eat. This can be a precaution when you're trying to eat some food that's been